Alrighty, it's been a productive couple of weeks, but I think we finally found the perfect spot. After a series of upsets at finding my secondary location in this world that caused this whole thing to drag on, I think that this will do perfectly. This is my ultimate dream home. Okay, it looks like utter crap, but hey, since I'm just gonna be jumping back and forth between these worlds anyway, it doesn't really matter, so it's all good. But with that being said, I can now say with 100% assurance that my house hunting is finally over. Say, dragon, house hunting, buttery smooth transition, let's discuss Dragon Goes House Hunting. Based on the manga of the same name, Dragon Goes House Hunting was released in 2021 and follows a red dragon named Letty, who, after failing to keep their family's eggs safe, is kicked out and forced to live out on his own. He tries to find his own place, but nothing appears to suit him. He eventually meets a powerful elf named Diaria, who also happens to be a real estate agent, and he agrees to assist the hapless dragon in finding the perfect home to live a happy life free from those who want to slay him. Now, before we get too deep, I will say that I have not read the original manga, alright? So if there are any differences between the two, I'm not the one to tell you. However, if you guys know of any interesting elements that were left out of the anime but were in the manga, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, back to the story. So yeah, the majority of the show is just the two traveling around to various locations and environments attempting to find a decent house. But for one reason or another, Letty dislikes every house they come across, and they embark on their ever-continuing journey. They do break up the formula a few times with either flashbacks or non-house hunting adventures, so the repetitive nature of the show doesn't feel as monotonous. The anime is a fantasy comedy, if you couldn't tell from the title, and the show takes full advantage just watching this large wimp of a dragon trying to fit into the many unsuitable homes, or him just falling prey to the various pitfalls alone is absolutely hilarious.
There's a chance you may die.
Most of the humor does surround Letty's difficulty in trying to find a home, but there are several instances where the jokes play against expectations, due in part to the many eccentric personalities that the duo come across. And every new location yields a lot of comedic potential, which again, as I said, the anime takes full advantage of.
So you'd like a place where you can safely bring women home for some private time?
I don't care for the way you phrased that.
A nest for baby making?
Even worse.
Scary!
Am I crazy or was that a dragon?
Was it?
You expect me to sneak past them under a giant box?
Let's move on to weight training.
If I don't hurry up and stop him quick, we'll end up totally ripped!
Papa.
Now, something you'll notice very quickly, especially from the intro, is the fact that this anime makes a lot, and I do mean a lot, of RPG references, which unfortunately is one of the most divisive elements of this whole show. Throughout this series, characters will treat many conversations like a video game, including a lot of meta-humor about stats, characters respawning over and over again, repeated enemy types, and making choices like an RPG dialogue tree, etc.
-7 for luck. How can I survive with stats like that? And why haven't I updated my picture? I'm tougher. It looks like I leveled up.
No, you didn't.
Wow, shuts out. Wait, that's weird. Why did the camera change to first person? Now it's even scarier.
What should we do now, Letty?
Oh, I'd rather not fight him. Whoopsie. We're sorry to bother you on your day off, sir.
Have a good one.
Now, me personally, I didn't really mind all the constant RPG references throughout the show. However, I can understand why a lot of people would hate that, as admittedly a lot of times it does take you out of the moment for the show just to make some random stupid video game meta humor joke, which can be hit or miss. Also, I don't know if it's just the English dub, but this show also makes a lot of pop culture references to other media as well.
It's Bonnie!
Johnny!
Jackie!
Johnny! Don't!
Be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other.
Sometimes I'm burninating the countryside.
Burninating the countryside. So now I figured it's time to talk about our leads, Letty and Diaria, as the show pretty much revolves around the two. Now, there are other side characters that pop up here and there, but for the most part, they're just in it for an episode or two. Thus, it's important for our leads to have some great chemistry in order to carry the series, even if it is only 12 episodes. So, how are they? Well, they're actually a pretty fun duo, even if they're not the greatest of characters. Okay, so both of these characters aren't too particularly deep, but there is still some character development for the two, so they aren't completely static characters. But for a comedy that's centered around literally one plot point, one joke for the most part, about finding a house for a giant red dragon, how much growth could you really possibly expect? The two work off each other rather well despite being opposing personalities, and even though Diaria maintains his professionalism being saddled with, let's face it, a loser of a dragon, the two form this quirky little friendship, with Letty learning a little more about life with each encounter. Speaking of which, let's focus on Letty. Despite being a formidably sized dragon, he's just a big old wimp who really doesn't know how to do a lot of things on his own, let alone searching for or buying a house. And his antics and anxiety do create somewhat of a repetitive formula. Find a house, locate a problem, whines about it, leaves to find another house. Oh, and get used to Letty whining and screaming in terror a lot.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Now, in most cases, this is where a show would completely lose its audience. I mean, really, why would someone want to root for a whining, complaining protagonist? Now, this would be the death of any show if not for two traits. One, he's a kind and gentle giant that legit cares for others. And two, his priorities shift when he adopts a child. Yes, fairly early on, Letty locates a chick that imprints upon the red dragon immediately upon hatching. The two bond rather quickly, and it's pretty damn cute. After this, he's thinking about a home that will not only keep him safe, but also his baby chick. They also run into a girl named Nell later on, and while she's not in the overall series long, again, he does show concern for her safety. Had this element of family not been a part of Letty's character, I would have pretty much just written him off completely as unlikable, especially the fact that he's not a fully fleshed out character, as I mentioned earlier. While he does become more open to the concept of family and learn to be a little more independent, that's pretty much the extent of his development, as there really isn't that much of a vast change in his character by the end. With that being said though, I don't think his character was meant to be anything uber deep or even really that great, and rather more of a proxy for the audience so that, along with Letty, we could experience this strange, bizarre world and see all the wonderful and magnificent sights that it has to offer. Another element that surprisingly helps out his character is actor Michael Kovac's voice for the Red Dragon. Instead of a deep or intimidating voice, the English dub gives him a rather high-pitched, almost childlike voice, which makes the character feel more younger, adding a greater sense of innocence to him, with his anxiety and whining making him akin to more of a child or young teenager having difficulty to do life stuff for the first time. So yeah, Letty is definitely a far cry from a fully fleshed out character. However, I think the anime knows it and embraces the madness of just him going around having misadventures and shenanigans all along the journey, and we're just meant to have fun with it, which is fine for his character. Now let's focus on Letty's real estate agent. Yes, I was serious. The powerful magic elf, Diaria. Despite the difficulty of dealing with Letty's constant complaints and annoyances, Diaria maintains a well-mannered, reserved, calm persona, but also has this air of mystery about him. Like, why would this powerful elf who can reign in some decent levels of death and destruction want to be a real estate agent, especially for this guy? Now, at first I figured there was some sort of ulterior motives or something not quite on the level with him being so nice, going around to these locations and whatnot. As about halfway through the series, we find out that he's actually the Dark Lord. But as it turns out, there's nothing sinister about him at all, and he is Dark Lord in name only, as he literally won the role pretty much by accident in a random lottery, but completely rejects this identity in one of the more funnier scenes of the show.
Birth of a new Dark Lord!
I abdicate.
Already? You cannot refuse it?
Then I'm resigning.
No, you can't do that!
Okay, I quit.
You can't quit!
Then I'll step down.
Tell it what you want, what's done is done!
But yeah, he's really just a nice, chill guy who wants to help out creatures of this world who are constantly under threat by quote-unquote heroes, which I'll get back to in a bit. Anyway, what I love about this guy, and where most of his humor comes from, is just how apathetic he is throughout the entire adventure. Whether the two are beset by heroes attempting to kill him or surrounded by an entire army, he maintains that same stoic expression.
If you value your life, you will surrender the castle at once!
We can pelt them with these rocks until they bleed to death.
For we are the sovereign suffering gods of the new world!
That's a bit of a stretch.
I'll make the gods my bitch!
Don't stoop to their level.
I'm a black dragon from the Onyx Mountains, and I do hope that you will remember me fondly whether or not our paths ever cross again in this life.
What's that?
Hey, don't be stupid. I'm trying to make a good impression here.
And him keeping that unconcerned expression throughout the series just makes every situation that much more hilarious as he underplays everything. Going back to Letty for a second, Diaria basically holds his hand in the first part of the journey, but as time goes on, he does leave the dragon to his own devices to allow him to become more independent, but does intervene if a situation calls for it, as he can utterly dominate any foe in his wake. We do get some backstory on him where we find out he's been highly inquisitive ever since he was a child, eventually learning about stable, strong house building with, of all teachers, the great serpent Jormungandr. Well, to be fair, it's not the strangest encounter anyone's ever had with a world serpent.
Jormungandr is the baby-faced people's champ that everyone loves. Scrooge is playing the role of the villainous heel. I watch a lot of wrestling while I fly.
Wait, while?
Anyway, we see Diaria struggle to build a house as the world serpent keeps destroying it by accident, but in a clever way figures out to maintain such a structure with the simple solution of placing the house on top of the serpent itself. Furthermore, he later meets a black dragon named Varney, who's also looking for a home. And we do actually get to see a little more emotion out of the elf, as we see that his patience is not actually infinite, making him more realistic and an interesting character.
You dare to bombard me with insults while you behave with such childish entitlement. You're nothing but a homeless beggar who forced himself into my care.
What?
You never cared at all about any non-humans.
Don't you have something to protect?
It's not that...
Of course you don't, because you don't know nothing! Think more about the world and who you have in it!
There are many things that he has yet to learn.
As I said, he's highly intelligent, but in his youth, his curious and impulsive nature would often lead to consequences, like when he tries to just create a simple reading nook, but accidentally cuts an entire branch off the world tree. He mostly relies on whatever books he comes across, which gives him somewhat of a basis, but has little real-world experience with people. Upon his interactions with Varney, he actually gets a better view of how the real world and its citizens operate, and how things aren't just black and white. Thus, with the knowledge he gains from Jormungandr, Varney, and beyond, we see a definite arc with him becoming a much wiser and understanding person. And from these various interactions, we see how Diaria's modern-day building techniques, or just understanding of housing in general, comes from these bizarre and creative scenarios. Plus, it also lends further credence for his extreme patience with Letty. Now, the last main characters are Pip and Nell. Not much to really say on both. Pip is the adopted eagle chick that Letty cares for, and while he does help out his dragon dad with his powerful cries,
Wicked loud, bro!
he's mostly just the prototypical baby character. As for Nell, well, she's basically just the stubborn princess trope. Hilariously enough, we find out that she left her kingdom after her father committed the most heinous of crimes in the land.
Cup of tea, Father?
I'd love one, thank you. And this too.
You broke! I didn't say you could have a cupcake!
This for a stupid cupcake?
She's also one of the more common criticisms myself and others have with this show. The fact that despite her being in the intro, she literally shows up in the last 3 episodes. And as I said, there really isn't too much to her character. She's the bratty princess archetype that initially is abrasive and rude to her new friends, but eventually warms up to her new friends and learns not to be so self-centered, and yeah. And it's executed fine, but I've seen it before. Now, the only other recurring characters in this show are the heroes, which I've already mentioned a few times, and ironically enough, they're pretty much the main antagonists of this show, as they're constantly trying to kill Letty, but it's the same 4 characters, which makes it that much more hilarious, as they die over and over and over and over again.
Demon Lord! With the help of my great sword of justice, I shall smash!
I took care of the heroes for you.
I've also seen numerous criticisms that there really isn't anything to their characters, and, well, that's kind of the point. They're just supposed to be one of the many reoccurring enemy types you would see in a video game, just grunts to act as common interaction. Hell, the first episode references how underwhelming they actually are.
We're heroes! Here to slay thee!
Who?
You idiot!
You go around calling yourselves heroes?
Of course, what's wrong with that?
I don't know. It's just a little cringy.
Now, as far as the ending goes, I'm of 2 minds about it, but ultimately, I didn't feel very satisfied. So the trio during their house hunt accidentally end up at Nell's castle, and a big humorous standoff occurs. But in the end, Nell makes up with her father, Letty forms a friendship with said father, and the dragon and Diaria once again go off to find their next home. On the one hand, a show ending with him not finding his perfect home can seem like a more realistic or relatable dilemma to life struggles. Always searching for that dream home, or any goal for that matter, but never quite finding it, yet remaining ever vigilant to knowing the right home or goal is out there. On the other hand, the ending to the last episode felt pretty underwhelming. The big emotional ending was just okay, and the reunion, even for a comedy, didn't really leave much of an impact. While the majority of the episode is rather good, by the time it reached the end, it just felt like the ending to a regular episode, and really didn't have that finality feel to it. Would it have been better if he had just actually found a home? Maybe. But again, the fact that the show really didn't have any finality to it left me rather unsatisfied. I don't know. What did you guys think about the ending?
So that was Dragon Goes House Hunting, and for its faults, it's actually a pretty fun, entertaining show.
The comedy can be hit or miss at sometimes, but when it scores, it's highly entertaining. The characters aren't too particularly deep, but the various shenanigans the group finds themselves in are just enough to carry an episode, along with the many eccentric characters they run into. And the series itself is just long enough at 12 episodes that it doesn't overstay its welcome. Not the best anime comedy I've seen, but still a solid experience with a unique and quirky premise that everyone can enjoy.
Well, that's it for today, guys. Until next time, and see ya!